Our story begins as he transmigrates into a game world, gaining a unique hidden talent called Eternal Power that affects his territory. All units within that space would now have their temporary buffs converted into permanent ones, a true game changer. He stood there stunned for a moment, realizing that a single support skill could now provide an everlasting advantage, much like a cheat code. But what truly excited him was the realization that this frozen survival world was a game he had played before. With his extensive knowledge of that game world, he was certain he could outpace everyone else in this new era. He was ready to change his fate, but then a woman suddenly appeared, his late boss's sister-in-law, Lu Mushua. At the same time, a system notification appeared, announcing that the game would now feature a new family survival mode. This mode groups players in teams of 4. Those without relatives are randomly assigned to whoever happens to be nearby. He realized then that he had been driving to pick up Mushua for the funeral just as the game invaded reality. The timing had been perfect for them, but he was quickly distracted by the professional class selection panel appearing before him. We see 5 classes: Cold Iron Mechanic, Polar Warrior, Frost Mage, and the Aurora Knight. Along with the Snow Hunter, he knew the Cold Iron Mechanic was technically the strongest choice available. However, that specific class is notoriously weak in the early stages, unlike the Polar Warrior and the Snow Hunter. While those two classes are decent at the start, they eventually lose their momentum in the long run. Between the Aurora Knight and the Frost Mage, the latter is known to perform well throughout the entire game. He didn't hesitate to choose the Frost Mage, and the system immediately congratulated him on his successful selection. With his elemental affinity unlocked and his cold resistance slightly improved, he received his starting equipment. It was placed in his storage box, just as the system warned that only 4 hours and 32 minutes remained until nightfall. Monsters wouldn't attack the camp during the newbie protection period, which still had 5 days and 17 hours remaining. Seeing this, he frowned. The temperature was already 32 degrees below zero, and it would only drop further. The temperature would drop by another 20 degrees, meaning survival now depended on the bonfire and the Spirit Pearl Hut, which warmed a 10-meter area. Within that radius, the temperature would rise by 5 to 20 degrees, sufficient for now, but the damaged Spirit Pearl Hut still required stone and wood. It needed repairs, and as luck would have it, a pile of white stones and cut wood lay near the bonfire. He was just about to gather them when Lu Mushua finally finished processing the system's messages and called out to him, addressing him as Xing. She asked which class she should choose, and he immediately suggested she become an Aurora Knight. To be honest, he had a bit of a selfish motive here, as the Aurora Knight gains many powerful buffs in the later stages. Normally, those effects are fleeting, but with his eternal power talent, he could make those temporary buffs last forever. Imagine the terrifying power of a unit with permanent buffs. Mushua, for her part, didn't doubt his decision for a second. In this strange new world, he was the only person she knew, so he turned his attention to opening the initial supply box. After obtaining bread, a stone axe, and a stone hammer, he immediately began gathering materials to repair the damaged Spirit Pearl Hut. Mushua wanted to help as well, so he set her to work collecting resources to upgrade the camp's bonfire. Before long, the bonfire reached level 2, expanding its warmth to a 20-meter radius just as the Spirit Pearl Hut was successfully completed. With the hut finished, the system announced that the territory interface was unlocked, allowing them to build even more basic facilities. This meant that De Zhuang was now a frontline tank with infinite health regeneration, essentially making him invincible. Feeling the surging power within his body, De Zhuang bowed respectfully and offered his thanks to the great Spirit Pearl Lord. He praised the vastness of his master's power, and we see that De Zhuang's loyalty was beginning to shift. His loyalty rose from 70 to 80, while our protagonist wondered if his healing spells would work the same way on himself and Mushua. He cast a healing spell on Mushua, and sure enough, the system confirmed that the ice healing effect had become a permanent state. Both he and Mushua were stunned by this reality-defying ability, so he naturally decided to try casting it on himself as well. However, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over him, signaling that his mental energy had reached its limit, not that it mattered much now. Xing decided to take the now invincible De Zhuang and the others to settle the score with that giant snake once and for all. Upon reaching the site, we see the serpent's stats, a level 2 monster, which explains why De Zhuang couldn't win before. However, with an immortal tank leading the way, the group quickly slayed the beast, successfully taking down the snow viper. He earned 30 experience points and a special notification. He was the first person in the region to kill a monster. His reward for the first kill was a Snakekin Priestess recruitment scroll, which summons a level 5 unit to assist in battle. Delighted by this, he used it immediately, and a beautiful serpent woman appeared before him in a flash of light. She greeted him respectfully as her lord, introducing herself as Elena of the Snakekin tribe, ready to serve. As Xing examined Elena's status panel, he realized she possessed 2 distinct and very useful buffing skills. The first was Scale Armor, which could briefly provide 10 points of additional armor to herself or an ally. The second was Snake Frenzy, granting a 60-second boost to both movement and attack speed by 20%. Since these were buffs, they would become permanent under his eternal power, which, to be honest, is quite a terrifying advantage. He had Elena cast both skills on the group immediately, and in an instant, everyone, including Xing, felt the change. They all received the permanent stat boosts, and he made sure to grant Elena a permanent ice healing effect as well. Feeling the incredible power flowing through her, Elena marveled at the sheer depth of her master's mysterious strength. Xing nodded, satisfied, and began harvesting the snow viper's carcass, yielding a poison gland and 17 pieces of snake meat. The moment they saw the meat, De Zhuang and Er Zhuang's eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated hunger. It had been a long time since they'd eaten meat, and they were practically willing to die for a single taste. Xing just laughed and told them that if they worked hard, they would all be having snake soup for dinner. We returned to the camp, where San Zhuang arrived to deliver some interesting news to our protagonist. They had discovered a small coal mine near the quarry, though it seemed there was a catch to this discovery. San Zhuang hadn't dared to get too close to the guards, but the moment Xing heard the words coal mine, his eyes instantly lit up. Coal, as we know, is a much higher grade of fuel than wood. With it providing heat, he could save his timber for building other essential facilities. He asked about the wolf's strength, and San Zhuang estimated they were likely just a bit more formidable than the snow viper they had just faced. Xing figured they were likely level 3 or 4 monsters. With the level 5 Elena on his side, he finally had the strength to challenge them. He promised San Zhuang and Si Zhuang extra meat for dinner as a reward, then immediately led the others toward the mine. As they approached the cave, the location's data appeared before his eyes, and we see the 2 snow wolves standing guard. The status panel confirmed they were level 3 monsters, but against a team with infinite health and Elena's support, they didn't stand a chance. The battle was over almost before it started, ending with a notification that Elena had successfully killed one of the snow wolves. He gained 20 experience points while Elena took 40, and just like that, the brief skirmish came to a successful conclusion. He began harvesting the carcasses, and to his surprise, the loot was exceptional, including 2 rare green-tier wolf skins. The haul included over 100 portions of meat and various crafting materials, but the most important item was a new drop. It was a blue-tier recruitment scroll for a twin wolf knight, an item that would allow him to summon a powerful ally immediately. This would be a level 10 unit, though the system added a small warning to make sure he had enough food to support such a warrior. Between Elena and this new level 10 knight, Xing's power was growing at an absurd rate. To be honest, he was practically flying now. Furthermore, the wolf skins were exactly what he and Lu Muxua needed to craft warm clothing and survive the biting cold. He draped the warm fur over the shivering Lu Muxua, who looked up at him with a gaze full of genuine gratitude. With a small smile, he proceeded to occupy the mine. The moment the process finished, the system chimed in with another surprise. Not only did he receive a bronze treasure chest, but he was also recognized as the first survivor to ever occupy a resource point. His reward was a set of purple-tier equipment, an ancient weapon known as a barret, along with some specialized clothing and 12.7mm ammunition. Xing was momentarily speechless as he looked at the high-caliber rifle. It was a barret, which, to be honest, felt like a bit of an unfair advantage. A barret? He had to wonder if he'd heard that correctly. An ancient weapon, with an attack power of 967 to 993. It fired once every 2 seconds and featured armor piercing, which offered a 50% chance to ignore 100 points of armor. The second effect was headshot, dealing 50% extra damage. To be honest, that sounds like a bit of an overkill. He was stunned. 900 attack power this early in the game meant he could essentially sweep aside any obstacle in his path. He only had 10 bullets for now, but once the territory reached level 4, he could unlock a factory and solve his ammo problems. After stowing the rifle, he headed back into the mine, where the system reminded him a bronze treasure chest was still waiting. Opening it revealed a hoard of supplies and a market blueprint, which would finally allow him to trade resources with other survivors. He checked the rest, a staff he could use himself and some snow boots, the value of which, we can agree, is obvious. There was even a medical kit for treating common colds, which, in this freezing wasteland, was a truly precious find. Once he was sure nothing else remained, he dismantled the chest for 5 pieces of copper and stepped back out into the cold. Outside, Lu Muxua reported they had gathered over 100 pieces of coal. That would certainly keep the fires burning for a while. He noticed Lu Muxua was still shivering, so he smiled and handed her the new snow boots he had just found. She was grateful, but her legs were so frozen she could barely move, so he simply knelt down to help her change them. He then carried her back to the territory in his arms. She blushed the entire way, though she didn't seem to mind much. Back at the base, he checked their resources and ordered De Zhuang and Er Zhuang to begin work on a new sawmill. He sent San Zhuang to build the market and Si Zhuang to prepare a shelter for Elena. Finally, it was time for everyone to eat. He led Lu Muxua to the cabin to rest while he set to work building a simple stove for their next meal. He began cooking the snake meat they had gathered earlier. Outside, we see the sky darkening as the day finally comes to an end. the temperature began to plummet, reaching a staggering -50 degrees Celsius. A perfectly ordinary evening in this frozen hell, it seems. Even with the stove lit, the indoor temperature sat at -16. Fortunately, the workers finished their tasks just before the deep freeze hit. Returning to the cabin, he told De Zhuang and the others that he was quite pleased with their performance today. As a reward, they were allowed to eat their fill of the snake soup. The sight of meat left them absolutely thrilled. They ate while swearing to work even harder for their lord. Meanwhile, we see their favorability ratings soaring past 80. He then turned to Elena, whose hunger was at 50%, and asked if she preferred her meat raw or cooked. Raw, she replied respectfully. He nodded and pulled out 2 pieces of snake meat to give to her. He prepared to hand them over, but then hesitated and swapped the snake meat for 2 pieces of wolf meat instead. Elena's favorability rose instantly, but her hunger only increased by 10 points. He couldn't help but frown at that. Since Elena was his primary combatant, he gave her 4 more pieces of meat to bring her hunger level up to 80. He sighed at her massive appetite, especially since he still had an even more powerful recruitment scroll in his possession. He couldn't help but think of the powerful double wolf knight scroll he held. Tomorrow, he would definitely need more food. Since the night made it impossible to work or explore, he decided to open the world chat to see how others were faring. To be honest, the situation looked grim. The screen was filled with death notices and the backpacks of fallen survivors. However, some players were sharing their experiences, suggesting that others prioritize building a spirit pearl cabin or upgrading their bonfire. They also noted that the territory provided a safe haven where they could successfully avoid monster attacks. After a moment, he posted a warning that the temperature would drop to -60 degrees tonight. He suggested that if a cabin wasn't possible, a simple shelter of wood and stone might help them survive the freeze. Next, we see him checking the regional channel, which covered a massive square area of 500 kilometers. This was Area 174, where the online count showed that out of 40,173 people, only 38,000 remained. As for the messages themselves, he noticed that most of the survivors were from cities near his own. It seemed the transmigration process had grouped people from neighboring regions together in this strange new world. Next, we see various pleas for help and trade offers appearing. He headed to the market, planning to exchange some resources. A listing for a mage skill book called Ice Armor caught his eye. It was a spell that could increase armor values. The spell boosts armor for a limited time. To be honest, the high cost usually made it a mediocre skill. But for him, when paired with eternal power, the shield would last forever. It was, quite simply, a divine artifact. The asking price of 50 food items was steep, but since bargaining was allowed, he sent a private message. He offered 10 food items for the book. The seller's response was immediate. I said bargain, not rob me. The seller was insulted by the low offer, telling him to get lost. But our protagonist remained perfectly calm. The seller was shocked he had meat already. He sent over the item details, and the man responded immediately. The seller demanded at least 40 food items, or 8 pieces of snake meat. He simply sneered at that. He offered 3 pieces of meat, noting that ice armor was a common early game skill. By tomorrow, he wouldn't be able to trade for food, even if he wanted to. The seller hesitated, then relented. The man said the meat would help his family survive another day. Hearing this, he decided to adjust the deal. He offered 20 food items and 5 extra loaves of bread instead. The seller agreed, and the book was his. The Ice Armor skill consumes mental power to boost armor by 60% of the user's spirit stat. With his spirit at 8, the skill provided 5 points of armor for 30 seconds. Or so it seemed. As soon as he cast the spell, the system announced that his eternal power talent had been triggered. The skill became a permanent buff, increasing his armor by 5 points indefinitely. He was, naturally, quite pleased. His total armor now reached 15 points. Now monsters below level 3 couldn't even hope to damage him. Afterward, we see him chatting with Lu Muxue to get a better sense of how other survivors were faring. It was then that Muxue realized not everyone was as lucky as she was, having already found safety. Our story continues as Muxue settled into the warmth of the Spirit Pearl hut and thanked Xing for his help. She admitted she likely would have frozen to death without him. Xing simply replied that it was no trouble. He reminded her that as a team, they needed to cooperate to survive in this harsh new world. Helping her was effectively helping himself. She promised to adapt quickly and not be a burden. They shared a quiet goodnight, but just as they were turning in, Muxue received a sudden friend request. It was her mother, by Yunlan, requesting a video call. Muxue hesitated before finally pressing accept. Her mother didn't even say hello. She immediately asked if Muxue had any extra food to spare. She begged for support, claiming that she, Mushua's father, and her 2 brothers were in a dire state. Apparently, the food in their starter chest wasn't even enough for a single meal for Debao and Xiaobao. Muxue listened with a bitter smile. It seemed this world was no different from the one they left. Imagine a world where your own parents don't care if you live or die, only if you have resources. Back on Earth, they had even tried to force her to marry a local thug. Fortunately, he died first. She thought she had finally escaped that nightmare family, so she told them she had no extra food. She claimed she had nothing to give, but her father wasn't buying it and immediately grew suspicious. He accused her of lying, noting that she already had a house and a fine fur coat. He demanded to know where she got it. Just then, the voice of one of the children chimed in. The boy identified the fur as wolf skin, meaning she had meat. Her mother's temper flared instantly. She called Mushiwa an ungrateful white-eyed wolf for not sharing her food with her own flesh and blood. Overwhelmed by the sudden verbal assault, Mushiwa stood there in tears, unsure of how to even respond. Her mother only grew more aggressive, shouting that Mushiwa had no right to act like the victim here. We see her mother sneer that Mushiwa thought her wings were strong enough now, but that was when Xing suddenly appeared by her side. He asked those two old things what they were squawking about, which, naturally, led her father to demand who he was. Xing told him he didn't need to know his name, but as for rights, he was the one who killed the wolf and owned the meat. He made it clear they were dreaming if they thought they'd get a single crumb, noting that they were perfectly capable of working. He asked if they had no shame, trying to leech off their daughter instead of finding food, before giving them a final lashing. After giving them a piece of his mind, he signaled Mushiwa to hang up the video call immediately, cutting off the toxic connection. The world fell silent at once, leaving Mushiwa visibly shaken and struggling to keep her emotions under control. To be honest, she was overwhelmed, but she still managed to thank Xing for stepping in and ending the confrontation for her. Xing reassured her, stating that there was no way he would let people who wanted something for nothing take his resources. He warned her that she must never give in to anyone demanding resources, because once you start, there is no stopping. He explained that they would only keep coming back for more, and Mushiwa realized that this new world was her chance to start over. Imagine having the opportunity to escape your family shadow. Mushiwa knew she had to take this chance. She nodded solemnly, promising Xing she would stay strong, before a sudden thought seemed to cross her mind. Mushiwa walked over to the stove and brought back a small bucket of hot water, turning her attention toward Xing. She spoke softly, telling Xing that she had noticed his feet were looking quite frozen and sore. She had noticed the way he moved. She looked toward his feet. We see that she had noticed some of the stiff movements he was making. She had been watching him closely, her eyes falling toward his feet. It was in those small movements, the ones she had seen him make, that showed his feet were somewhat moving. Awkwardly as she watched him, his feet were, to be honest, clearly hurting. There were some moving signs that gave it away. She had been watching him, and his feet betrayed his discomfort in every movement. She had seen him, and she knew his feet were in some pain. Every movement was strained. He could see it clearly now. He knew the pain was real. Those awkward steps were making him restless, and he knew he had to take action soon. He needed to gauge the beast's strength first, and he had the confidence to do it, to be honest. With his Barrett, monsters under level 20 were no match. Half an hour later, we arrive at a snowy cave. The system warned him. He had entered the lair of the snowy tundra tyrant bear, a lethal predator. He was told to be cautious. His companion offered to lure the beast out, promising to be careful. He nodded, confident they could escape if needed. Not long after, we feel the ground begin to shake. Suddenly, a massive 8-meter-tall shadow burst from the cave like a violent storm. Its terrifying roar echoed across the peaks, enough to make the entire mountain tremble in fear. This was the snowy tundra tyrant bear, a level 15 elite with over 4,000 health points. Its first skill, the bear paw strike, would send any weaker opponent flying with a single blow. Then there was the savage roar, a sound wave that could stun anyone nearby for 3 long seconds. Finally, its lightning strike could summon the power of the heavens to blast everything in its path. It dealt massive lightning damage and left victims paralyzed. He looked at these skills and realized something. This beast was as strong as a level 20 monster, which, naturally, was the worst possible news. But he didn't panic. He calculated that his Barrett would need at least 5 shots to kill it. He was 500 meters away. At the bear's speed, it would take 10 seconds to reach him. With a 2-second firing interval, 10 seconds was exactly enough for 5 shots. He was ready. He raised the Barrett and fired a shot at the tyrant bear, and we see the damage numbers float up immediately. A terrifying 872 damage caused the beast to lose its balance and collapse, but he didn't stop there, firing once again. This second shot dealt a massive 1,234 damage, as the Barrett's armor-piercing effect finally kicked in. Taking 2 hits in a row filled the bear with murderous intent, and it lunged toward him once more. He fired a 3rd time, but the beast actually dodged it, leading him to curse his own terrible aim. The tyrant bear still had 1,974 health points remaining, and the situation was becoming quite tense. Calculating the distance, he realized he only had 2 shots left, yet he remained unnaturally calm. He fired again for another 893 damage, even as the bear closed the gap to just 100 meters. This was it, his very last chance to decide the outcome. In an instant, the final gunshot rang out. A staggering 1,574 damage appeared over the bear's head as it finally slumped into the snow. Not only did the final blow land, but it also triggered a headshot bonus as the system confirmed the kill. For defeating such a high-level monster, he earned a massive 1,400 experience points, a 400% bonus. Our protagonist was delighted to see his level jump straight to level 3 in a single moment. But the rewards didn't stop there, as he also looted a junior heart of strength from the fallen tyrant. This evolution item would allow a level 10 survivor or a territory member to finally advance their rank. Upon becoming a Tier 2 creature, all their attributes would double, a truly significant power boost. He also received a junior element crystal, which could be used for alchemy or constructing magical buildings. To top it off, he was the first survivor on the server to kill an elite creature, earning a special reward. He claimed a blueprint for a junior elemental sword tower and a recruitment scroll for a tundra druid. Meanwhile, we see that Yahello and Assam were utterly awestruck by the sheer power he had just displayed. With a smile, our protagonist tossed the junior heart of strength to Assam. "My lord, is such a precious heart of strength really for me?" Assam asked. He replied that this mission had proven the man's bravery and discretion. He felt Assam was worthy of greater power, and the warrior was instantly moved to tears. Assam vowed to give his life for his lord. As a system prompt revealed, he was deeply touched by the gesture. His loyalty increased to 95, reaching a state where he would now face death itself without a second thought. As Assam used the crystal, the pressure radiating from his body suddenly reached a truly terrifying level. The system confirmed the advancement was complete, and all of Assam's attributes increased by 100%. After checking the new stats, he turned to Yahello and encouraged her to continue performing well. He promised that once she reached level 10, he would find a heart of strength for her own breakthrough. Yahello thanked him for his generosity, swearing to give her all, as the system provided another update. It noted that she was moved by his words, raising her loyalty to 85. He smiled and turned his attention to the recruitment scroll. This tundra druid scroll allowed him to summon an elite creature at level 15. A level 15 elite is quite a catch, to be honest, and he realized just how powerful this addition would be. Next, we see another blueprint for a junior elemental arrow tower, which could defend his territory from 600 meters away. This tower boasted an attack power of 213, with a firing interval of exactly 2.5 seconds. It was a formidable weapon indeed, capable of dealing over 200 damage with every single shot. It could nearly one-shot someone like Yahello, and even the unevolved Assam wouldn't stand a chance within its range. He would likely be shot down before even reaching the tower. Next, we return to the tyrant bear's corpse. Upon choosing to dismantle it, he instantly gained over 1,000 pieces of blue-quality bear meat and hides. Along with other items, the best part was the meat itself, which would increase both strength and constitution each. For a warrior class, those 2 points translate to 4 attack power and 40 health points. There is also a slight boost to his influence, and since food is currently the most precious resource, trading this would undoubtedly cause a frenzy. To be honest, this represents a truly staggering amount of wealth. And in this world, wealth is often the difference between life and death. We learn that taming wild creatures requires feeding them and waiting for them to grow into their full combat potential. He accepted the recruitment, and when prompted to name the cub, he thought for a moment. He decided to call him Volibear. Meanwhile, Lu Mushua happily scooped the cub up, and just as he was about to warn her about the cub's electric shocks, she laughed, completely unharmed. He was left speechless. We see that the little cub already knows how to pick favorites. Nearby, he spotted an unlocked silver chest. His heart began to race. In this world, chests are ranked from bronze and silver to gold. And finally, the Haoyue chests, which, to be perfectly honest, can even contain legendary equipment. Even a silver chest is a rare find. In his past life, he didn't find one until 10 days in. Finding one this early is a massive stroke of luck, so he wasted no time in opening it. He obtained a Mark Robot skill book, a black iron coin, 5 medkits, and a small resource pack, along with 5 pieces of manine. He was overjoyed to find a skill for a cold iron mechanic, which was a god-tier early game ability. It was the Mark Robot exclusive skill book. By consuming materials and energy, he can summon a robot that inherits 120% of his stats. The robot lasts for a full 180 seconds. He also found a pair of gauntlets that increase his attack range, which he can use immediately. The resource pack provides a steady supply of stone, wood, and iron, while the manine is a rare metal for high-tier crafting. Back at the territory, he checked his supplies, which were, to be honest, quite plentiful, and set Dazhuang back to work. While the others handled the gathering, he and Lu Mushua visited the neighbor's hut. Ever since he helped her family with their situation, their bond had deepened quite a bit. After a brief, flirtatious moment that he decided not to pursue further, he still took a moment to compose himself and open the market interface, planning to sell some goods to fund the territory's growth. We see the world channel is its usual chaotic self, though some were sharing warnings about a group of brutal masked men. They warned everyone to stay away, as these strangers were incredibly violent. It was a sobering thought for anyone listening. Suddenly, the chat channel erupted in a frenzy as Fong Long from the Sanine Society began selling food once again. He offered 100 grams of meat for 100 wood or 50 stones. He also had limited weapons and equipment for trade. He urged anyone with extra materials to hurry. While some were desperate, others were disgusted by the sheer audacity of the price. Such a price would essentially strip a camp of all its resources. It might satisfy hunger, but it would cripple their future. Knowing how dire things were, he began breaking his bear meat into smaller portions to list them for sale. He noted that this meat provided permanent stat boosts, and of course, his prices were much more generous than Fong Long's. The word spread like wildfire. Soon, everyone was telling their friends to rush to the market for the attribute-boosting bear meat. His listing was swamped with attention almost immediately. A survivor named Yang Lin was particularly excited about the deal. He had managed to trade 50 stones for an entire piece of meat, enough to boost his whole family's attributes. Imagine that. This news sent the chat channel into a total frenzy. Someone even posted the bear meat stats to the world channel for all to see. This left survivors outside of District 174 feeling incredibly envious. It was a rare moment of fortune in a harsh world. Meanwhile, he was being flooded with a constant stream of transaction alerts. Within minutes, he had acquired 5,400 wood, 3,200 stone, 342 iron, and 43 elemental crystals. A very successful day at the office, along with a green blueprint and 20 pieces of menin. And all he had to give up was 21 portions of meat. With 5 pieces of whole bear meat and a staggering 1,000 portions in his backpack, Chao Xing was, to be honest, quite delighted. These materials were exactly what he needed to upgrade the core of his camp: the bonfire, the spirit pearl hut, and the gatherer's hut. He could upgrade everything at once and even construct a primary elemental defense tower, a true powerhouse for protecting the territory. He quickly summoned Dazhuang and the team to assign their tasks, stepping away from the market to focus on the expansion. As soon as the bear meat vanished from the market, the survivors of District 174 fell into a state of immediate panic. Some worried he had sold out, while others deeply regretted waiting for a price drop that never came. Naturally, the mockery followed. One survivor called them fools, pointing out that attribute-boosting items are always a premium currency, regardless of the situation. They noted that Chao Xing's prices were actually quite fair, especially when compared to the daylight robbery being practiced by Fong Long. Buying from Fong Long was a one-way ticket to bankruptcy, a comment that, unsurprisingly, drew the man's immediate and angry attention. Fong Long shot back, acting offended that anyone would call his prices high when he was generously preventing them from starving. The chat channel fell into a heavy silence. Most of them were from Xiangjiang and knew exactly who they were dealing with. They recognized the Sannin Society as a notorious gang, the kind of people you really don't want to have a disagreement with. Fong Long warned everyone to stay in line, reminding them quite bluntly who the real boss of this region was. He declared that any future trades in the area would require their permission, threatening anyone who dared to bypass their authority. One brave soul called him out for being overbearing, but Fong Long wasn't interested in a fair debate about market ethics. He openly admitted to their ruthlessness, asking if they truly thought the Sannin Society was some weak group they could push around. He reminded the channel that they had hundreds of members stationed throughout the area, which was a chilling thought for the others. Since they were bound to cross paths eventually, he suggested they think very carefully about the consequences of their words. One by one, other members of the Sannin Society jumped into the chat to back him up, creating a wall of intimidation. The other survivors grew quiet, their expressions darkening with worry. Meanwhile, Chao Xing had finally finished organizing the day's labor. When we see Chao Xing return to find Fong Long attempting to ban all other trades, he is momentarily stunned, though he quickly recovers with a cold sneer. He simply posted that he'd been away for a moment and that the trading would now continue as planned. Fong Long barked back immediately, asking if the kid hadn't heard him or if he was simply ignorant of their reputation. He demanded to know if Chao Xing knew the Sannin Society, forgetting, or perhaps ignoring, that this was no longer Earth, after all. Chao Xing told the others not to fear these big idiots, urging them to ignore the threats and keep trading. He announced that the bear meat was limited and first come, first served, with the strict exception of any Sannin Society members. He mocked them for still acting like lapdogs in a new world, telling them to go beg their master for a meal instead. This comment was like poking a hornet's nest, instantly drawing a wave of vitriol and insults from the gang members. Quietly, he began noting down the names and IDs of everyone insulting him, systematically adding them to his trade blacklist. As the other survivors realized more meat was available, we see the chat fill with messages of support for Chao Xing. Meanwhile, Fong Long was fuming with rage, mostly because he realized his own men were now being blocked from every trade. However, the situation shifted when Lu Mushue's father reached out to him, claiming to have inside information on Chao Xing's past. Upon learning that Chao Xing had been nothing more than a lowly driver in the old world, Fong Long's worries vanished. He scoffed at the idea of a bottom feeder, thinking he could actually change his fate in this new reality. He immediately ordered every member of the Sannin Society to prioritize finding the exact location of Chao Xing's camp. Unaware of the hunt, Chao Xing watched as 500 portions of bear meat were snatched up in a flurry of notifications. He eventually informed the public that his stock was running low and he could no longer support such massive, open trades. He did mention, however, that he was still looking for rare items like blueprints or skill books through private messages. This gave the latecomers a bit of hope, while Chao Xing turned his attention back to his own territory's growing reserves. To be honest, his stockpiles had reached a truly staggering level, a mountain of resources that was almost hard to believe. Back when he played this on his phone, it would have taken nearly 20 days to gather this much. And then, Lu Muxue reached out. She warned Chao Xing about Feng Long, explaining that she had dealt with the man before. She described him as a sinister, ruthless individual and urged him to be extremely careful. He nodded, though he wasn't worried in the slightest. At this stage, player conflict was limited to finding an opponent's camp. In his mind, it was impossible for low-level survivors to trek dozens or even hundreds of kilometers just to cause him trouble. Even if they were brave enough to try, a level 5 Ilanaga and the level 10 Twin Wolf Knights could easily crush them. Not to mention, he still had an unsummoned Icefield Druid in reserve. Most importantly, he was about to build a true powerhouse, the basic Elemental Tower. Once that was up, it wouldn't matter if the entire Sannin society attacked at once. They would simply be delivering themselves to their doom. To be honest, his real concern was the lack of manpower. He had massive resources, but only 8 workers to manage them. Even with everyone working around the clock, he couldn't funnel all those resources into his construction projects fast enough. He felt that failing to turn these resources into a strategic advantage was a terrible waste. But then, Assam returned from his patrol. We see Assam arrive with 3 women following behind him, calling out to his lord with news of a new discovery. He explained that these women were refugees who had fled from the distant ice-sealed city. That city, located thousands of kilometers away, had recently fallen to the relentless army of the White Walkers. After narrowly escaping the city and surviving an encounter with a dangerous cult, they had been rescued by Assam. They were now homeless, and Assam, feeling pity for them, suggested that the territory could certainly use more hands. The women pleaded with the Lord to take them in, as they had nowhere else to go. They promised to give their all to the camp, prompting Chao Xing to simply ask if they knew how to cook. When they confirmed they could, he decided that the task of preparing meals would be theirs from now on. Immediately, he sent out recruitment invites, and the system confirmed his success. Jasmine, Tulip, and Sapphire had joined him. They were now part of his territory, increasing the population by 3, but he felt it still wasn't enough for his needs. To make management easier, he renamed them Dahua, Erhua, and Sanhua, a bit uninspired, perhaps, noting that their stats were all level 1. Their hunger levels were dangerously low, so he told them to start a fire and cook something immediately, despite lacking a proper cafeteria. Since the only stove was in the Lord's cabin, they headed there, leaving Chao Xing to consider the needs of his new recruits. He knew he would need to build small shelters for their rest and a dedicated dining hall for everyone to eat together. However, whether crafting or constructing, everything required time, a luxury he lacked while watching his 8 workers toil away. He couldn't help but sigh, feeling the weight of his labor shortage, and began recalling his past experiences with the game. We learned that this world is populated by natives, and there are typically 4 ways to recruit more hands to a territory. The first is expanding the territory to attract nearby tribes or refugees. The second is sending scouts like Assam to find survivors. There was always a chance of finding someone in the wild, while the third method involved visiting cities or local villages. One could simply go to a tavern and pay a fee to recruit NPCs with special abilities to join the cause. The fourth option was far more aggressive, waging war on nearby tribes to force them into submission, though none of these fit his current situation. But just as he was worrying about his lack of manpower, Dahua and the others finished their meal and brought him some timely news. Dahua explained that they had actually escaped from a camp run by a group of incredibly cruel and ruthless hunters. Many of their companions were still being held captive there, and Dahua pleaded with him to go and rescue them if he could. This was exactly the opportunity he needed to bolster his numbers, so he asked how many hunters were guarding the camp. Dahua estimated there were about 20 or 30 of them, most of whom felt about as strong as the Lord himself. There were also 2 squad leaders who seemed slightly more powerful than Ilanaga, the snake woman currently standing by his side. Finally, she mentioned a powerful commander whose aura rivaled that of Assam's twin wolves, and Chao Xing nodded, processing the challenge ahead. So, 1 level 10 hunter, 2 above level 5, and over 20 more below that level? He had the upgraded Assam, of course, a significant advantage, and a level 15 elite Tundra Druid. Success seemed certain, and his gamer instincts told him these hunters likely hoarded valuable treasures. After confirming the location, he immediately began preparing for the coming battle with his new resources. First were the skill books, Ice Bolt, which conjures up to 3 shards to strike down enemies. It deals magic damage based on the user's spirit and has a 30% chance to freeze targets. Then there was Aurora Blessing, a skill that coats a melee weapon in the power of the lights. It adds extra light damage equal to 80% of the user's spirit for a full minute. Chao Xing learned Ice Bolt himself, while the Aurora Blessing was given to Liu Muxue. Next, he used the recruitment scroll, and a sudden surge of natural pressure filled the air. A man named Andrew appeared, pledging his service as a guardian guided by the forces of nature. Checking Andrew's stats, we see he possesses a powerful transformation skill called Great Bear Form. This form boosts all attributes by 30% and grants the skills Wild Roar and Fierce Assault. The transformation lasts 60 seconds, and though he was satisfied, Chao Xing noticed a small problem. Andrew's loyalty was a mere 63%, his gaze filled with a certain cold indifference. The druid clearly felt that a weak lord didn't deserve his full devotion, which, to be honest, is fair. Chao Xing simply smiled, promising Andrew that as a citizen, he would receive a truly divine blessing. To Andrew's utter shock, the lord began layering ice heal, ice armor, and Ilanaga's various blessings upon him. Then, using his eternal power, he transformed these temporary buffs into permanent states of being. Feeling his strength surge indefinitely, Andrew was left speechless by the sheer impossibility of the gift. Andrew is stunned by the power of the blessing, which is a reward for his loyalty. Chao Xing explains that only his citizens enjoy such gifts, prompting Andrew to address him as Lord. Andrew admits he has never seen such power in his life and offers his heartfelt thanks. A system notification confirms that by helping Andrew grow stronger, his loyalty has risen to 74%. Chao Xing offers a small smile and prepares to lead his team to the hunter camp, but the system interrupts. A global announcement rings out. All survivors have now survived the second day of the Ice Age. To help everyone adapt to the world's rhythm, the level rankings are about to open for every region. The first 100 survivors to reach level 10 will receive rewards, and Chao Xing quickly scans the list. While the rewards for 4th through 100th place are mostly food and resources, the top 3 are far more impressive. They include Tier 2 recruitment scrolls and blue-grade equipment, but one item in particular makes him catch his breath. The first place prize is a Tier 2 boss-grade recruitment scroll, a rarity in this harsh new world. We learn that all creatures, whether recruited or wild, are categorized by their innate aptitude and potential. These grades range from common and elite to leader, boss, and finally, the legendary commander rank. The higher the aptitude, the more attributes a creature gains with every level. Take an elite creature, for instance. Its base stats are naturally 30% higher than a common creature's, and the gap only grows from there. This first-place reward skips the leader rank entirely to offer a boss-grade scroll, which is frankly terrifying. In that moment, Chao Xing decides he must sprint toward that top spot, though he isn't the only one with that goal. His rival, Fong Long, and various other factions are undoubtedly planning to do the exact same thing. Since the rankings won't be finalized for a while, he suppresses his excitement and leads his group to the hunter camp. Upon arrival, the system warns them that they have entered a special zone with a high danger level. The zone is marked as extremely dangerous, but we see that Chao Xing doesn't hesitate for a single moment. The system's evaluation of his strength is, to be honest, a bit incomplete. It failed to account for his hidden assets, so he simply orders Andrew and Assam to charge, immediately triggering a loud alarm of an incoming enemy attack. As the chaos begins, he takes a quick, calm look at the situation unfolding before him. The enemies are merely level 3 or 4 monsters, hardly a threat at all, and we watch as Andrew plunges into the crowd with terrifying speed. With a single swipe of his claws, massive damage numbers pop up, and the system confirms that our loyal Andrew has successfully slain a hunter. Andrew earns 40 experience points, while Lu Muxue, Chao Xing, and the follower Elena each receive a half share of 20 points. Both he and Lu Muxue are momentarily surprised, as they haven't even joined the fray yet, but the experience points are rolling in regardless. He quickly realizes the logic behind it. Since they both provided buffs to Andrew's team, the system considers them active participants in the battle. It's a clever mechanic, really, and once he grasps this point, he begins to see the incredible potential of his current situation. To be perfectly honest, this feels almost like cheating, as it means he could theoretically level up just by recruiting enough powerful followers. He could send them all out to do the heavy lifting while he simply sits back in his territory and watches his level rise, a very tempting prospect. More importantly, this gives him and Lu Muxue a much better chance at claiming those top spots on the global rankings. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the hunter's desperate attacks are barely scratching Andrew, whose health bar seems to be regenerating almost instantly. The poor hunters are completely overwhelmed, as he heals faster than they can hurt him, which, naturally, is quite frustrating for them. Suddenly, a figure bursts from the center of the camp, the hunter captain himself, and Chao Xing immediately checks the man's stats. He notices the captain has a skill for a quick escape, so he immediately warns Andrew and the others not to let the leader slip away. The captain, seeing how easily Andrew is tearing through his men, was already planning his retreat, but hearing Chao Xing's voice makes him move even faster. But then, Andrew lets out a thunderous roar, transforming into a massive bear before launching a devastating charge toward the fleeing leader. He catches up in an instant and crushes the captain with a single, brutal blow, earning Chao Xing a substantial 150 experience points. With that, our protagonist reaches level 4, just as the system notifies him that he has successfully destroyed a strategic enemy location. We see that clearing the hunter camp grants 50 reputation points. Because he completed such a high difficulty event, the system takes note. Based on the evaluation of his strength, he receives an extra reward, a Phantom Assassin recruitment scroll, capable of summoning a level 20. Elite tier Phantom Assassin. Deep down, Chao Xing is ecstatic. This assassin is even more powerful than Andrew. After that, he moves forward to collect the spoils of war, finding several hunter masks and a Tier 1 soldier training manual. He also finds some coins. The hunter masks are equipment that can increase one's spirit, while the Tier 1 soldier training manual allows him to turn ordinary people in his territory into capable soldiers. As for the coins, they are the common currency of this continent, used to buy supplies or recruit followers in towns. He then enters the hunter's tents. Inside the first one is a bloody sacrificial scene that nearly makes him lose his lunch. As expected, these hunters were complete madmen. In the other tents, however, he finds plenty of coins, food, and supplies. At that moment, Andrew informs him that he found a strange key on the captain's body, a goblin treasury key. Holding this key allows one to open a vault at specific coordinates, though the system warns of hidden dangers. He should proceed with caution, but his eyes light up regardless. While goblins are generally considered a weak race, we know they are exceptionally skilled at digging and finding treasure, meaning their treasuries often hold something truly valuable. Unfortunately, the coordinates are over 40 kilometers away, which is a bit of a stretch for his current mobility. That will have to wait for another day. He then makes his way to the final tent, where the group of refugees is being held. He glances over their names, but stops dead when he reaches the very last one, a survivor named Tong. Choo-Choo. She is only level 1, but surprisingly, she is a human from Blue Star. Lu Mushua immediately steps forward to comfort her. After talking, they learn that Choo-Choo had gone out with her father to find food yesterday, only to be ambushed and captured. As for her father, he was taken away by the hunters last night and never returned, leaving poor Tong Choo-Choo to break down in tears once more. Chao Xing can only sigh, having seen many such tragedies during the battle. Looking at the grim remains of the ritual, we can guess that Tong Choo-Choo's father was likely one of the victims. Lu Mushua turns to Chao Xing and asks if they can bring the girl back to their camp. He nods. After all, the territory is finally stabilizing. One more mouth to feed is hardly a burden. Besides, she is a survivor, and in the future, who knows? Perhaps she might even be useful. Realizing she is in the presence of a powerful lord, Choo-Choo looks at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. She tentatively asks if her mother can come along too, as she is currently all alone back at their original camp. This gives Chao Xing pause. Unlike the natives, human survivors can be unpredictable, and loyalty, as we know, is never a guarantee. He was willing to take the girl because she lacked combat power and posed no threat. To be honest, he was just being practical. But adults are a different matter entirely. He opens the system interface to see how he might integrate other survivors into his territory. He learns there are 2 distinct methods. The first is to invite them as a co-lord, sharing all building permissions and resources. The second, and far more sensible option, is to recruit them as residents. As residents, they only have basic living and building rights, and, most importantly, they cannot attack friendly units. Seeing this, he decides that the resident path is the only way forward. It's a much safer arrangement for everyone involved. This way, he won't have to worry about any internal sabotage. He then asks Choo-Choo for the coordinates of her camp, though he makes it clear that the final choice belongs to her mother. Choo-Choo thanks him profusely, promising to never forget his kindness. Chao Xing then turns his attention to the other natives in the tent, asking if they know Moli and Lambashi, the ones Assam rescued earlier. Upon learning they are companions, he explains that their friends are already safe and living in his territory. In fact, it was their information that led him here. He asks if they would also like to join him. Learning that the hunters outside have been wiped out, they immediately and respectfully agree. In total, he recruits 6 new followers. There are 3 men and 3 women, but since their names are a bit complex, he simply renames the men Chao 1, Chao 2, and Chao 3. The women are named Sihua, Wuhua, and Luhua. Chao 1, interestingly enough, possesses a junior speech talent. This allows him to deliver speeches to soothe the residents' emotions, while Sihua brings her own junior cooking skills to the table. Her meals provide an extra 20% satiety, a pleasant surprise that brings a rare glint of satisfaction to Chao Xing's eyes. In a quiet corner of the camp, we find a hunter's storage chest. Opening it reveals a bounty of useful supplies. Inside are white bread, wheat seeds, milk, and even copper. These wheat seeds are particularly valuable. They can be planted on tilled soil, finally providing the territory with a permanent food source. To be honest, it was about time. As for the copper, it's a vital metal in this world, used for crafting everything from electrical wires to lamps. Even snow robots and war machines require vast amounts of it. Among the loot, he also discovers a special quest item, a letter. It is a message from the Church of Light, addressed to all faithful followers of the God of Light. The letter claims their Lord has sent a revelation. The seed of the old world is about to manifest. To prepare for its arrival, they plan to launch a blood right operation. All believers near the Ice Gold Kingdom are summoned. They are told to gather at a specific base. Once their numbers are great enough, the plan becomes truly dark. They intend to attack Doran Lake City, sacrificing every living soul to the seed. The system notes this is a quest item. Chao Xing could deliver this letter to the city to expose the church's conspiracy. It's a heavy choice for any traveler. He frowns as he reads. The idea that these hunters would actually attempt to sack a city seems utterly insane. It is a level of madness he wasn't expecting. Besides, he has no idea where this Doran Lake City even is. A quick check of the coordinates shows the hunter gathering point is over 200 kilometers away. At such a distance, he assumes the chaos won't reach him. After burning the camp, he and his group head to Chuchu's camp. Upon arrival, he attempts to follow Tong Chuchu inside, but the system immediately blocks his path. It seems that during the newbie protection period, entering another survivor's camp is strictly forbidden. So he waits. A tall woman with a mature air steps forward, and we learn her name is Xiaoyani. Seeing so many people gathered outside her territory, Xiaoyani's shoulders tremble in fear until Tong Chuchu steps in to explain. Once she hears how they were rescued, Xiaoyani's eyes well with tears as she offers her heartfelt thanks. She even tries to kneel with Tong Chuchu, but Chao Xing stops her, reminding her that his territory is in desperate need of hands. He invites them to join his people, to return with him and help build a future where they can all develop together. In exchange, he promises them safety and a steady supply of food. After a brief moment of hesitation, Xiaoyani nods her agreement. After sending the recruitment invites, the system informs him that this territory is now ownerless and asks if he wishes to occupy it. Upon confirming, he receives a Lord's glorious relic box. To be honest, the name itself is a bit ominous. Inside, we find only a small amount of wood, some stones, and 2 pieces of rat meat, the very last of this territory's resources. It's clear that if he hadn't arrived, these 2 would have either starved or frozen to death within a matter of days. Chao Xing takes a deep breath, his resolve hardening. This world is full of opportunity, yes, but it is equally full of peril. He realizes he must grow his strength and territory quickly, lest his own storage chest one day becomes a relic box for someone else. By the time they return to the territory, dusk is falling. Dahua spots the familiar faces in the group and rushes forward with a cry of joy. The survivors begin an emotional exchange, sharing the relief of having escaped with their lives, while Dazhuang approaches the leader. He reports that the campfire upgrade was a success and that the Lord's cabin is currently being renovated at an accelerated pace. We see that the campfire has reached level 5, casting its warmth over a radius of 160 meters. It raises the temperature by 10 to 20 degrees, and under the steady heat of the flames, the snow-covered ground begins to emerge. This cleared land is vital, as it's the only place where new buildings can be constructed and crops can finally be planted. Essentially, the level of the campfire dictates the size of the territory. Eventually, it will evolve into a massive energy tower. At that stage, the heating range will cover an entire city, allowing survivors to expand their reach through constant construction. Developing the territory could eventually lead to owning an entire city. Chao Xing remarks that it's not bad and instructs Dazhuang to lead Wu Zhuang and Liu Zhuang to continue gathering resources, focusing on the coal mine. The upgraded campfire will consume a great deal of coal, and we must ensure the camp stays warm. He then tasks Erzwang, along with Qi Zhuang and Bazhuang, to hurry and build more small shelters and a canteen. He wants them finished before dark so the new members have a place to eat and sleep. As for San Zhuang and Si Zhuang, he tells them their only goal before nightfall is to construct a basic elemental tower. Meanwhile, the group of newcomers has finally finished their emotional reunion. They watch the original residents working, and the elder of the group, Chao Yi, feels a stir of motivation. He quickly leads the other refugees toward the leader. Lord, he says, please, give us tasks to do as well. Chao Xing tells them there is no rush. He knows they haven't eaten in days, and one cannot work on an empty stomach. These new residents exchange looks of pure surprise. To be honest, they likely expected a much harsher welcome. It seems this is the first time they've encountered such a considerate lord. Since the canteen isn't ready, he offers them bread to tide them over. Lu Muxue immediately retrieves a dozen loaves from the storage, ensuring every new member receives 2 pieces. As Chao Yi and Sihua offer their heartfelt thanks, we see their loyalty to the territory surge. Nearby, Tong Chuchu and Xiaoyani watch the others eating that white bread, their own hunger becoming impossible to ignore. They haven't eaten for quite some time, and the sight of food is almost overwhelming. Chao Xing reaches into the resources and hands 4 pieces of bread to Xiaoyani, telling her to eat. She bows deeply, her gratitude written all over her face. After that, he turns his attention back to Chao Yi. He decides that the new group will remain under Chao Yi's direct command. Their primary tasks will be to help upgrade the campfire and gather resources. Both wood and stone are in high demand. If there is any spare time, they are to assist Dazhuang's team with the construction of the basic buildings. Chao Yi nods eagerly. Finally, Chao Xing hands the wheat seeds to Dahua, telling her to find a suitable spot nearby. She is to clear the land and plant these wheat seeds, high-quality seeds that are sure to thrive. Dahua promises to produce excellent wheat, vowing to complete the task. Chao Xing watches his territory and nods with satisfaction at the busy scene. From a single campfire, he now has many residents and an increasing number of buildings. This, we realize, is the true joy of building a home. Suddenly, he asks if anyone knows how to sew. The wolf skins he and Lu Muxue collected haven't been processed, so the cold resistance isn't great. To be honest, a raw skin is hardly a coat. Someone with sewing skills would certainly speed things up. The residents look at one another and shake their heads. But then, Xiaoyani speaks up, explaining that back home, She often did manual work to support her family. Little Tong Chu adds that her mother's clothes are always beautiful. He nods and hands the wolf skins to Xiaoyani, asking her to turn them into proper clothing. He suggests using any leftovers for hats or gloves. She agrees, noting the skins are of excellent quality. She promises to have them ready by tomorrow. He nods, and a relieved Xiaoyani takes her daughter into the tailor shop. As the sky dims, we see night is about to fall. In this world, darkness lasts a long time, with less than 10 hours of daylight. Thus, he and Lu Muxue return to the Spirit Pearl House to rest. Meanwhile, the second day for humanity in this world is ending. Across the globe, many survivors are finally venturing out of the snow. We see them moving alone or with family, cautiously exploring their surroundings and finding their first meager resources. Elsewhere in District 174, a man named Fong Long grips a black iron sword. With a single strike, he slays a wild boar, and a white light signals he has leveled up. He is pleased to reach level 3 before nightfall. Ever since the leaderboard opened, he has been out searching for low-level prey. He's convinced no one kills beasts faster than he does. Elsewhere, we meet a middle-aged man with a rather rugged, fleshy face. He draws a longbow to its limit and releases an arrow, instantly taking down a roe deer. This man is Zhou Bo of the Heavenblade Society. Just then, he receives a message from one of his subordinates. Boss, I've mapped out everyone's coordinates. The message reads, within 30 kilometers of your camp, there are 2 other brothers' camps. If they focus on development today, they should be able to reach your location by tomorrow. A cold, calculating smile spreads across Zhou Bo's face. Excellent, he thinks. Once they arrive tomorrow, we can form a team. Our efficiency in hunting and leveling up will increase significantly. By then, people like Fong Long or Wu Xinghu will all be beneath my feet. Meanwhile, many survivors finish their explorations and begin returning to their camps. The chat channel starts to buzz with life as people realize something important. It turns out that teaming up with family to handle low-level monsters isn't so difficult, and they've even secured some food. Of course, others complain that they encountered high-level frost goblins just outside their doors, monsters they couldn't possibly defeat. A bit of bad luck, really. At that moment, a countdown appears as the system announces the level leaderboard. The data is being compiled, and in 3 minutes, the rankings for each district will be revealed to everyone. Survivors will be able to check their standing on this real-time list. Suddenly, everyone's spirits are lifted as they wonder who the top player might be. Some suggest it must be the leader of Hutong, Wu Xinghu, since he has already reached level 3. However, others quickly point to Zhou Bo and Fong Long, who are also level 3. Amidst the shock, the system announces that the level leaderboard update is complete, but the rankings are quite different from what anyone expected. In District 174, the first place belongs to Chao Xing at level 4. In second place is Wu Xinghu. Wu Xinghu is at level 3 with 25% progress, while Zhou Bo sits in third at level 3 with 14%. Seeing this leaderboard, the entire chat channel for District 174 falls into a stunned silence for a moment. Then, of course, an absolute flood of messages erupts. First place actually belongs to the legendary Chao Xing, truly the man who killed the bear. Meanwhile, Fong Long and Zhou Bo are looking quite grim. Fong Long can't believe this kid actually took the top spot. On the other hand, a look of genuine interest crosses Zhou Bo's face. How interesting. Originally, he thought the boy was just lucky and doomed after offending Fong Long, but now it seems he has real talent. Zhou Bo opens his friend list and sends a private message, ordering his contact to use their network to investigate this mysterious Chao Xing. Elsewhere, in the Spirit Lord's hut, Lu Muxue looks at Chao Xing with excitement shining in her eyes. Xing, you're in first place. That's incredible. He simply smiles, telling her they must keep working hard tomorrow to see if they can secure a top 10 reward for her as well. Early the next morning, he receives a notification that the basic elemental tower has been successfully constructed. We see a 15-meter-tall hexagonal tower rise at the edge of the camp's bonfire. If any enemy dares to approach within 600 meters of the camp, this tower will automatically open fire. Quite powerful indeed. Just then, a knock sounds at the door. Sihua enters with a smile, carrying a bowl of bear gall soup and a serving of roasted bear meat. She explains that both have been prepared exactly as he requested the day before. Seeing this, his eyes light up. Bear gall can directly increase health by 200 points, while the meat boosts strength and constitution. These are no small upgrades. After taking a bite of the bear meat, the system immediately notifies him that his strength and constitution have both increased by 2. As for the bear gall, something rather strange happens. He takes several bites without receiving any notification at all. It isn't until he finishes half the bowl that the system finally confirms the success. His maximum health increases by 200 points. It seems he needs to consume at least half the gall to trigger the attribute boost. Realizing the remaining half might offer another increase, he decides to finish the rest right then and there. He gave the rest to Lu Muxue. It's a pity such food only grants a bonus the first time it's eaten. At that moment, the system notification rings out again, congratulating the survivors on making it through their third night. We see that newbie protection has 2 days and 22 hours remaining. Furthermore, a small-scale snowfall is predicted for tonight. Temperatures will drop to a bone-chilling -70 degrees Celsius. Naturally, everyone is warned to stay warm. Lu Mushua asks if it will snow, and Chao Xing confirms it. Fortunately, it isn't a full-blown blizzard. He feels confident their current facilities can withstand the cold. With that, he pushes open the door to his hut. Outside, the original inhabitants and the newly joined residents are already waiting for him. As he emerges, they greet him in unison, asking their lord to assign the day's tasks. The residents are remarkably enthusiastic. Before this, they had been living hand-to-mouth, barely finding enough to eat. After just 1 day, they can already see the territory's bright future. To be honest, they cherish this opportunity deeply. Chao Xing nods, instructing them to continue the resource gathering he assigned yesterday. He tells them to focus on upgrading the bonfire and the hut to build a prosperous home together. Just then, Xia Yani and Little Tong Chuchu approach, each carrying a set of thick, handmade clothing. Xia Yani speaks cautiously, announcing the clothes are finished. As a modern woman, she still finds the title Lord a bit awkward. He thanks her and accepts the garments, a well-sewn wolfskin coat and a matching hat. While these items don't offer any special stat boosts, they are excellent for warding off the freezing cold. Noticing the dark circles under Xia Yani's eyes, he realizes she must have stayed up all night. He pulls out 2 pieces of bear meat and a bottle of milk for her. She is stunned, asking if such precious food is truly meant for her. He tells her to use it to nourish young Chuchu. Touched by his kindness, Xia Yani's eyes begin to well up. She nods solemnly, thanking him repeatedly, while Little Tong Chuchu beams with joy. After the work is settled, Chao Xing calls Assam over to ask if she discovered anything else while rescuing Dahua and the others yesterday. Assam hands him a simple map of nearby resources and explains that, beyond the usual materials, she found a mine. It seems a group of mole men has already claimed it. Interestingly, she also heard the distant roar of machinery. Hearing that sound, his eyes light up. This suggests the mine might contain some rare technological artifacts. He asks about the strength of these mole men. Assam admits she didn't scout inside, but notes they are low-level creatures. Most are Tier 1, with only the occasional Tier 2 or 3 appearing. A manageable threat, all things considered. He already has a plan. The mine isn't far from the territory, and his curiosity is officially piqued. And so, our goal for today is to explore this mine and raise both his and Lu Mushua's levels. Before setting out, however, he decides to use the Phantom Assassin recruitment scroll to bolster their strength. This particular scroll can summon a level 20 elite Phantom Assassin, a powerful ally, to be sure. He clicks confirm to begin the recruitment. Instantly, a mass of black mist erupts and begins to expand rapidly. Within seconds, the mist blankets the entire camp. We can just barely make out a figure moving inside. The figure emits no presence at all, yet it gives him a chilling, lethal sense of danger. The mist dissipates to reveal a woman in a black cloak and tight leather armor. She looks quite formidable. A dark helmet covers most of her face, leaving only her pale blue skin and reddish lips visible. She speaks slowly, stating that the Shadow Sanctuary needs protection and she has come to provide it. Phantom Assassin Shara, reporting for duty, she announces. He nods, welcoming her to the group. Shara offers no reaction to him. However, when Lu Mushua softly offers her own welcome, things change. Thank you, beautiful lady, Shara replies. I am at your service. It seems she has a preference. He can't help but roll his eyes at the blatant double standard. But then again, Chao Xing had long since grown accustomed to the cold indifference of new recruits, so he moved on to examine Shara's attributes. We see that Shara possesses 3 distinct skills. The first, Shadowless Form, allows her to blur her body and hide her presence. While in this stealth state, her evasion increases by 30% and her movement speed by 20%. This lasts for 5 minutes. Her second skill, Multiple Deliverance, gives her a 30% chance to deal massive damage. It deals 225% damage, with a 15% chance to deal 315%. There is even a 5% chance to deal 432%. Her third skill is Shadow Body. It adds 15% evasion while hidden. There is also a synergy bonus for having multiple assassins in the party. With 3 or more, the trigger rate increases by 5%, and with 10, it jumps by 10%. A look of pure astonishment crossed Chao Xing's face. With nearly 700 attack power, Shara was already a monster. A single critical hit from her would be like a sniper shot, and if her second skill triggered, the damage would be terrifying. And since his permanent talent was in play, Shara was about to become several orders of magnitude stronger. He looked at her with a certain degree of amusement, asking if she was willing to accept the special effects he could grant. Shara didn't respond, clearly hesitating. To be fair, she didn't know him, and trust is hard to come by in this world. She likely doubted that someone who looked so weak could actually provide her with any significant power. After a brief pause, she gave a small nod. Immediately, Elena stepped in to apply the snakefolk's frenzy and scale armor. Shara's body trembled as she felt the surge of power. But before she could even react, Chao Xing began his work. He cast blood weapon and armor spells, followed quickly by Lu Mushua's Aurora Blessing. 5 permanent buffs later, Shara was standing perfectly still, her shoulders trembling with the sheer intensity of the magic. As a professional assassin, she understood the value of permanent status effects better than anyone else ever could. She then brought her shadow blade to her chest, bowing her head in a gesture of profound respect. Shara bowed deeply, thanking him for the blessing and addressing him as her great lord. She pledged her loyalty then and there, and the system notified Chao Xing that her loyalty had increased. Her loyalty reached 71, prompting a satisfied smile from Chao Xing as he ordered the group to move out. Their destination was the Rock Ratman mine, and an hour later, they arrived at the foot of a snowy mountain. Before the cave, we see a system warning that this was a special area where many Rock Ratmen were active. It warned of unique dangers and advised caution, as the current threat level was considered extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous again, but Chao Xing wasn't concerned, as he was far stronger than he'd been at the hunter camp. With a simple wave of his hand, he led the group into the mine, with Andrew taking the lead. Assam followed closely behind, while Shara vanished into the darkness the moment they stepped inside. Lu Mushua held her shield high, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings to ensure Chao Xing remained unharmed. Inside the mine, we see a few torches on the walls emitting a strange, flickering blue flame. Upon taking one, the system identified it as a magic energy stone torch, a highly efficient lighting tool. A single stone could provide light for half a year, and better yet, the stone itself could be removed. Chao Xing's eyes lit up, knowing these stones were precious for powering the mechanical creations of this world. In the later stages of his journey, energy towers and other vital buildings would require these very stones to function. They were essentially a hard currency, much like elemental crystals, a find that was quite lucky, to be honest. He had Assam and Andrew take down every torch they could find, just as he noticed something else. There were iron tracks on the ground and overturned mine carts, which could be dismantled for 8 pieces of iron. Alternatively, they could be repaired with 4 iron or used to speed up the transport of minerals back home. The tracks themselves could also be dismantled for iron, so Chao Xing decided to take every last bit. "Let's keep moving," he said, and before long, we see dozens of creatures with rat heads busy mining. These were level 5 Rock Ratman miners, led by a level 7 supervisor who spotted our group immediately. The supervisor cracked his long whip and roared, ordering his workers to eliminate the intruders at once. The swarm of ratmen lunged at our heroes, but the power gap was simply too vast for them to bridge. Andrew simply charged forward, sending the ratmen flying, yes, like bowling pins, while Assam fought with effortless grace. Meanwhile, cold flashes of light flickered in the darkness, each strike dealing thousands of points of terrifying damage. Seeing such overwhelming strength, even the Rock Ratman supervisor began to show a look of genuine terror. As Shara and the others cleared the monsters, Chao Xing and Lu Mushua shared half the experience points. A white light soon enveloped Lu Mushua as she reached level 3, and she watched the battlefield with a question. She asked if she could join the fight, and Chao Xing could see the determination written on her face. He knew she needed the experience, and with her current defense, she could easily handle a single miner. He nodded, telling her to be careful, and Lu Mushua took a deep breath, raised her shield, and charged. She soon engaged a Rock Ratman miner, who swung its pickaxe violently against her sturdy shield. She gritted her teeth and blocked, only to realize the creature was barely dealing 8 or 13 points of damage. A second later, her health was fully restored by the ice healing spell, ticking up by 10 points at a time. Realizing the Ratman couldn't actually hurt her, she breathed a sigh of relief. It was a bit of an absurd realization, to be honest. Though she felt a bit shy thinking back on his guidance, she gradually found her rhythm in the battle. With a decisive thrust of her sword, she finished off the Ratman, just as Chao Xing raised his staff. He began firing ice spears to finish off the weakened miners, while the terrified supervisor tried to flee. But just then, Shara emerged from the shadows, her blade flashing with a devastating critical strike to end him. With the enemy's health reduced to 0, Chao Xing praised Shara for her performance, noting that her level had already reached the requirement for advancement. If he could obtain a Tier 2 Heart of Strength, Shara could evolve into a Tier 3 creature. Her strength would double at that point. After the fight, our group scavenged the area, finding rations, metal, and a chaos art manual. This skill allowed him to randomly increase the attributes of his allied units. A useful find, to be perfectly honest. They also recovered the long whip from the Rock Ratman supervisor. It was a strange weapon, even by their standards. The whip had a special effect that increased a target's work speed when struck, though the method was a bit unconventional. It granted a 10% movement speed bonus for 5 minutes, but it also came with a deepened pain effect. This increased the pain of the strike by 20%, which gave Chao Xing a rather peculiar idea. He wondered if his hidden talent could turn this buff into a permanent state. To the surprise of Lu Mushua and the others, he decided to test it on himself and delivered a sharp lash. A crisp crack echoed through the cavern. He gasped as the sting hit him, but the system immediately confirmed that the movement speed effect had been applied. The 5-minute duration was instantly overridden as his eternal power talent flared to life, making the effect permanent. It actually worked. He had just discovered a way to turn a torture device into a permanent speed boost for his army. Combined with the Naga's Berserk skill, he could now grant everyone a permanent 30% increase in movement speed. It was a massive tactical advantage, though his allies were utterly baffled by his pained yet triumphant expression. The righteous Assam hurried over to check on him, only for Chao Xing to ask if he could whip him as well. The request left everyone speechless. However, because of Assam's absolute loyalty, he wasn't about to question his lord's orders. He nodded, telling Chao Xing he was ready if it was necessary, and so, Chao Xing didn't hesitate to strike. The whip landed on Assam, whose stoic face contorted as he felt the sharp, stinging pain of the blow. But as the new strength surged through his limbs, he realized with a start exactly what his lord was trying to achieve. Is that so? It truly is amazing. Thank you for the whip, respected lord, Assam said, sounding genuinely grateful. Then, looking a bit bashful, the warrior asked if Chao Xing could perhaps whip him a few more times. Assam was eager to grow stronger, but Chao Xing explained that only the first whipping was effective. To be honest, it was a rather strange request. Hearing this, Assam nodded with a hint of regret, while the others watched in utter confusion. Chao Xing cleared his throat. He explained the whip's unique properties to them. Well then, Andrew, Shara, let me grant you this blessing as well. Soon, the sound of cracking whips echoed through the mine. With their status boosted, our group continued forward. Along the way, Chao Xing collected every iron rail he saw, gathering over 100 meters of them until they reached a fork. Here, we see a fork in the path. The left side seemed to lead deeper into the mine, where machines roared. The path on the right, however, was sealed off with wooden boards, appearing to be a restricted area. After a moment's thought, he had Andrew tear down the boards to see what was inside. He found several overturned minecarts, or was scattered everywhere. It seemed the rock rat men had encountered something and fled, leaving everything behind. They hadn't even had time to evacuate their supplies, which, in this dangerous place, was never a good sign. Shara sensed a dangerous presence within. Chao Xing frowned. She was a Tier 2 elite, yet even she felt uneasy. This meant a truly terrifying creature was lurking inside. He sent Shara ahead to investigate. Shara nodded and vanished into the darkness. A minute later, she reappeared to share what she had found. She had discovered the nest of a Tier 2 magical beast, one whose strength was roughly equal to her own. But with the Lord's blessings and the help of Andrew and Assam, she felt the risk was manageable. Feeling reassured, he decided to press on. Along the way, he harvested even more ore from the ground. They even found mithril and mana stones, leading Lu Muxue to remark on how successful this trip had become. The haul of ore and carts alone made it worthwhile. They reached the depths of the passage, where the light suddenly changed. We noticed white webs appearing on the ceiling and walls, and even some large webs filling the passage. These webs block our path forward. At the same time, a powerful, evil aura rushes out from the depths. The chill from the cave hits them hard. Chao Xing ordered Assam to clear the way, but the warrior struggled. Assam swung his sword as if he were cutting through thick jelly, requiring several strikes just to clear the webbing. At this point, Shara suggested she take the lead. With her shadow blade, a single strike cut a massive opening. She sliced through the resilient webs with ease. As they stepped deeper into the cave, the system immediately notified them. They had entered a special area, the crypt demon spider's nest. Above them, the cave's ceiling was covered in webs. White cocoons hung over their heads like giant dumplings. On the ground, there were glowing spheres of various sizes, coated in green slime. The smaller ones were demon spider eggs. If broken, they would release several small spiders. Specifically, 3 to 8 level 3 spiders. The larger eggs, if destroyed, would spawn level 15 spiders. Chao Xing looked across the floor and saw dozens of these eggs. To be honest, it was enough to make his skin crawl. He considered clearing the eggs first, but then the webs above began to tremble violently. Suddenly, a terrifying figure over 5 meters tall surged forward, dominating everyone's field of vision. The boss, a crypt demon spider, had appeared. It immediately spat out toxic silk, binding Andrew where he stood. But Andrew let out a thunderous roar as his body grew, shifting instantly into his great bear form. He shredded the webs with ease and broke free. Chao Xing immediately commanded his team to bring the beast down. Andrew, in his massive bear form, leaped into the air and lunged toward the crypt demon spider with a roar. The spider retreated with surprising speed, causing Andrew's claws to strike only empty air. But then, from the darkness, a cold light flew out silently. Shara's weapon struck the crypt demon spider, causing the creature to twitch in agony. A massive damage number of 643 appeared as the spider recoiled, and this was only the beginning. At the same time, we see Chao Xing fire off 3 ice spikes. They only dealt a measly dozen points of damage, but one of them, luckily enough, triggered the freezing effect. The crypt demon spider's body stiffened as a layer of frost instantly coated its shell, causing it to come crashing down from the ceiling.